started.
Yeah. So I'm assuming I'm amongst a lot of folks in the room. I can't see you right now, but hi, my name is Luis Reyes. I am the Deputy Legislative Assistant for Senator Tim Scott here in Washington. So I just wanted to provide you guys with a little bit of an update in terms of what's going on in DC. I know that there's a lot of stuff going on in the news, especially as it pertains to foreign policy. We had President Zelensky speak this morning with Congress, with both House and Senate members, to discuss the ongoing issues and problems going on in Ukraine. Oh, now I can see everybody. Great to see some faces. Just wanted to kind of touch on some of those issues. Even though while the foreign policy and defense piece are critical in this current moment of events here, I would say what's even more important is the economic impacts that we'll be facing with respects to this war in Ukraine. One of those being on energy prices and energy costs. I know that that's something that's very important to Senator Scott, to ensuring that we address the rising oil and gas prices for a lot of consumers, which also ultimately impacts businesses. From the staff level and from even member level, a lot of those discussions involve, making sure that we're doing the most to produce energy here at home, that we are ensuring our independence that we were working towards in the last administration, and that's been a big priority for Senator Scott and for a lot of the other members as well. I was also told that it would be of interest to discuss the state small business credit initiative, which was reauthorized under last year's American Rescue Plan. I can tell you that the American Rescue Plan included about $10 billion for this initiative. That money will get dispersed out to states as they are applying for them. I do believe that some of those deadlines either already came and lapsed, but I think the total amount of money was going to be around $101 million. That's what I looked up in the Treasury website prior to the meeting, that Treasury was giving to the state of South Carolina. Senator Scott did not vote for that bill, but the American Rescue Plan overall, we think that program needed a couple fixes, especially given a lot of the developments after the PPP program that we saw coming out of the pandemic. We saw that fintech played a very critical role. We feel like that wasn't addressed in this particular piece of that bill. But overall, there's a lot of different moving parts to that, and happy to dive in further as if anyone has any questions. But also wanted to mention a couple things that folks have been keying up on. I think we just voted. We just voted on the omnibus bill just last week, which included about 1.5, I want to say, $1 trillion in spending. So there was a lot of funding priorities in terms of the government overall. I know that a lot of it also included defense and non-defense spending, for making sure that a lot of our federal agencies had the appropriations necessary to function. Senator Scott did not vote in favor of it, knowing that we've been spending alarming rates of money, and there was a lot of priorities that we feel the other side was trying to jam through with this package. So Senator Scott did not believe that would be the right move. But that being said, inflation, it's hard to not talk about inflation. I think inflation is a critical component of everyone's lives right now. You're feeling it in prices of goods at the supermarket, in prices at the pump. One thing that Senator Scott has been emphasizing is the need to tackle our spending, but overwhelmingly for the need to tackle inflation overall. We introduced, or our team introduced with Senator Scott and Senator Thune, the Inflation Prevention Act. That bill would create a budgetary point of order in the Senate or in Congress that would address any increases in spending, especially as inflation increases over 4.5%. Right now, we're at a staggering 7.9%, which would warrant some action, at least on Congress's part, to address inflation. Um, in terms of small businesses, one big thing that was included in the pandemic was the employee retention tax credit. That was, I believe, in the first CARES package that Congress passed in 2020 in order to pay for the infrastructure bill, the bipartisan infrastructure bill that passed last year. Congress removed that piece out to justify some of the outsets for spending. So Senator Scott worked with Senator Hassan of New Hampshire, a Democrat, to introduce this bipartisan bill to ensure that employers had this essential tax credit that helped maintain a lot of folks on payroll. So that was something that Senator Scott was doing from a small business perspective, understanding that he himself is a small business owner, and this is one of his one of those critical priorities that we saw from the pandemic. Aside from that, there's a lot of different legislative measures that he's undertaken. As a member of the banking committee, he's also focused on ways that folks can access credit, and also ensuring different lending models and their availabilities are insured past their some outdated statutory limits. I'll point you to a couple bills, and happy to expand on them further. The Expanding Access to Lending Options Act, our Credit Access and Inclusion Act, and then for veterans, Building Credit Access for Veterans Act. So those are three bills that I would say that he very much focused on those key issues in terms of expanding access to credit and finding ways that we can address some of the outdated statutory limits to our current banking products. Aside from that, we also co-sponsored, or Senator Scott also co-sponsored, the streamlining the EIDL Act, or the Emergency Injury Disaster Loans Act. Oftentimes, the SBA takes a long time to get back to a lot of applicants that apply for EIDL, or for EIDL assistance and loans. So this legislation would statutorily require the SBA to respond in a timely manner to every applicant, get in different numbers of months. I would say between 2 to 5 months is usually around the time that most of this is supposed to be at least fully responded to. We know a lot of folks that deal with disaster issues, especially not just the pandemic, but even in hurricane season, that get hit pretty hard by a lot of the destruction, natural disasters and whatnot. So just allows SBA to work a little bit more streamlined, making sure that folks aren't feeling that bureaucratic crunch that comes with some of these processes. Another bill that I want to flag is the Training America's Workforce Act. Senator Scott worked with Senator Thune on this bill, which would establish a process to recognize standard recognition entities. This was a model that was done under the Trump administration, and we believed that it would assist in creating apprenticeship programs that were industry certified. And oftentimes industry themselves have their own view on how apprenticeship programs should and should not work, or what are the best ways that it would translate for their capacities. So that was something that he focused on the more labor aspects of that. But aside from Senator Scott's work here in Congress, there's a lot of things that we're being mindful on. We know that the administration has different priorities that we're just making sure that we're addressing at the staff level, and then eventually, depending if we need to get involved legislatively, we want to make sure that that's being done as well. I'll stop right here. I think that's overall what I wanted to talk about. But if any folks have questions or have any thoughts, please feel free to let me know. And I'm also happy to make sure that my contact information is available for anybody else that wants any kind of follow-ups.
Thank you, Louise. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Any questions right now? Anything you want to follow up on? Amy, Reverend?
I hope during this time you at least have a chance to glance at the tree blossoms for the next couple of weeks as you are commuting one way or the other. I'd like to understand just a bit more about those outdated statutory limits that you mentioned. Can you give us a little bit more specificity on the specific limits or provisions that you're wanting to address?
It was a little hard hearing. Would someone mind repeating that?
Better? Is better?
A little better.
Maybe this is better. Maybe you can be a little bit closer.
Still hard.
Okay. Let me see.
That now I can hear it right now.
All right. Oops. Now we're close to the laptop. How's this?
Perfect.
Okay, good. Amy? Amy wanted to know if you would address the statutory limits. Amy? Oh, this.
Of the bank.
Oh, the specifics of the banking provisions and this, yes.
Yeah. So this specifically addresses credit unions. So under the Federal Credit Union Act, there were general statutory limits on federal credit union loans that were capped at 15 years. This is something that we actually work in coordination with the Carolina Credit League to make sure that we expanded outside of that 15-year range. And this is one of those legacy items that Senator Scott's been working on for a while. But this would just allow for more of those loans outside of the mortgage space to be able to mature over time. That's primarily what that bill encompasses, and I'm happy to provide more information on that.
Thank you. Y'all, Carrie, y'all, any questions on that?
I know the legislation you're talking about. I do have a comment for you.
Well,
I know it's kind of difficult. So, hey, Louise, this is Terry Hendricks, Carolina Foothills Federal Credit Union. Your coworker, KP, is helping us through a process of trying to make the SBA understand that they are showing that they transmitted forgiveness amounts for about 12 loans to our credit union, but we never received it. So I just reached out to KP like yesterday, and he's going to help us through it. But we do appreciate having someone to go to bat for us. And Senator Scott has always been a champion, especially I know credit unions rely on him a lot. So again, thank you. We appreciate it. It's been difficult to try to make them understand where the actual issue was, because to them, we've been paid, but we never received it. So I was wondering, is that the first time you've heard this problem, or is it a widespread problem?
Yeah, and you referred to Canal, correct? KP Canal?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll admit sometimes things get a little bit tied up sometimes on the bureaucratic end, or communication can sometimes be a problem with some of the folks up here. But in terms of that, I haven't heard about that specifically, but happy to see that you're already working with our office, and hopefully we can get you an answer as soon as possible.
thank you very much. Other questions? Yes, Sam?
Sure. If you can translate,
Okay, thank you.
please. So obviously the senator is very involved in opportunity zones. Have there been any updates, anything of significance on the legislative side for opportunities? I know were some patches and fixes. Anyway.
Okay,
Yeah.
very good, thank you. So this is about opportunity zones and all of the great work that the senator has done with that. But we also know that there were some patches and fixes that needed to be put into place. What's the update on that?
Yeah, so no, I'm glad that you asked that question. Let me preface this with, I want to say kind of the current state of affairs up here in terms of Congress. Right now, as we have a 50-50 split in the Senate and a very close majority on the Democratic side in the House, there's been a lot of I want to say, political pushback on the other side on opportunity zones. However, there are some members on the Democratic side that think that this does need to be addressed, or we need to continue to work with opportunity zones, especially because a lot of Democratic jurisdictions, whether they be cities or states, saw a lot of benefit from the program. So I do know that, from my understanding, the Finance Committee, and I do believe the Ways and Means Committee on the House side, will be taking up tax extenders at some point. And with that, I do believe that we want to, at least from Senator Scott's point of view, we do want to make sure that that is extended. I know that the 2019 was the last year for the step up in basis, the 5-year benefit. I do know that we probably want to see how we can come to some kind of agreement to make sure that that's done. But right now, things are just still in talks. Nothing has been formulated quite yet. But definitely something that if as we're hearing, I want to make sure I'm updating you guys on that, especially with our finance team.
Good, thank you very much. Other questions?
States and what direction the states given on how.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Good question. So for the SSBCI funding that's coming to the states, is there any direction, or what direction are the states being given in terms of how to spend that money? Yeah, just a little more information, please.
Yeah, and I'll also do this. I'll point you guys also to the Treasury Department's website if I can't fully answer this part, because they do provide a lot of helpful resources that break this down. But I do know that they are looking to do a lot on the side of venture capital programs, loan participation programs, and loan guarantee programs as well. And I also believe that they're doing something to set up collateral support. Those were my primary understandings of how the program was going to develop overall. And I do believe, whether they are working directly with the state or not, they would also be working with certain financial institutions or economic development organizations that are primarily doing a lot of this work directly with the folks in the small business field. So they would be the ones to best address a lot of those requirements. But aside from that, I would just point you to the Treasury website that gives you more specifics.
Very good. Thank you. Good question. I had a question on access to capital and the 3 acts that Senator Scott's working on. What things will be changed to increase access? What are they looking to change or modify?
To build access to capital?
Yes.
Sure. And this is a really good question. It's actually one of the more exciting legislations or bills that Senator Scott has introduced, and a lot of folks are very happy with it. And I would even say it's pretty bipartisan. To preface that, even the Biden administration, the Office of the Comptroller of Currency, has adopted models in which they're working with different banks on this issue. But I'm sure you all have heard of alternative credit and alternative credit data. A lot of folks want to be able to build their credit, which would obviously lead to their ability to take out loans with different financial institutions. So under Senator Scott's Credit Access and Inclusion Act, what this would do would be, if folks want, let's say if you're paying off different expenses, sometimes you're paying off even utility costs, you're in the process of doing so, you're also building credit, you're improving your credit score. And this is something that was done in coordination with a lot of the credit agencies like Experian, for example, to make sure that folks can have that kind of improvement on their credit, something that a lot of folks that we believe that are credit invisible would really benefit from. And I'm sure this is a model that will probably get expanded because it has a lot of popularity. It seems that the administration likes it. Right now it's just a matter of seeing if there's a way to advance with that. And this is one of Senator Scott's other legacy items. Aside from that, we also just believe that ensuring that any kind of regulatory or statutory items don't prohibit people's ability to take out credit in any way. We think that small dollar loans, for example, and microloans are important. A lot of folks need to kind of take that stepping stone. So in terms of any discussions on that side, especially expanding the Military Lending Act, we are taking a big cautionary pause from, at least from Senator Scott's perspective, about how we address that.
Great, thank you. Anything else? All right, well then I'm going to ask one last question. So when we first talked, you said that given the environment up there, and you referred to it here as well, that not much is happening. So you had also, so could you explain to us a little bit about like the Small Business Committee and what it's actually doing now? And then there's the Entrepreneurship Caucus. Could you explain a little bit about that, please?
Yeah, glad to. So the with the Small Business Committee, things are a little, and I'll kind of dive into the politics bit. I admit it. Always try to avoid it, but it comes up very frequently. A small business committee right now has been generally focused on a possible COVID relief bill. Admittedly, I don't believe that's going to move forward. It was something that unfortunately didn't involve the Republicans on committee as part of that discussion. It was something that I would say the chairman, which is currently on the Democratic side, was trying to negotiate outside of the committee to find some willingness to get a package together. News on that is completely stalled from our end. We're not hearing anything, and our outreach is coming from different folks in the industry. Aside from that, I think there'll be a lot of reauthorizations that'll be coming up. I know that the Women's Business Center's reauthorizations might be coming up pretty soon, so I'm sure that the committee will probably be addressing that from that side of things. On the Entrepreneurial Caucus, we recently introduced the resolution about Entrepreneurship Week with our co-chair on the caucus, which is Senator Klobuchar. We are interested, of course, always engaging with folks that are trying to do any kind of outreach and events on expanding opportunities for entrepreneurs. But Senator Scott, he has a couple of bills out there. I'll be happy to send you a list because there's a couple of them, not that I can name top of mind, but right now things are kind of just in a wait and see moment with a lot of items in Congress, and unfortunately time can be really limited up here, as much as and Senator Scott actually appreciates going down to the state and meeting with folks. So I think he wants to make sure he's dividing his time as best as possible with that.
Very good, thank you. While you were talking, that made me think about the restaurant, any additional funding coming to support restaurants?
Yeah, so the revitalization fund, I think that was part of a discussion that was included in the omnibus package. I think one thing that a lot of folks have been wrestling with has been the spending issue, and the reason I say this is for two reasons. Under the American Rescue Plan, a lot of funds were sent to states and local governments to try to utilize capital to be able to address a lot of the problems that they're seeing after the pandemic. Now that we're seeing the pandemic kind of weaning off, a lot of restrictions are being lifted. The federal government is changing their tune. And some folks are even encouraging the CDC to provide a more clear understanding of what is truly changing. I would say that that has been put on pause, at least to my knowledge. But as that discussion might continue, I know that the restaurants package will not be the only thing involved. If there is any kind of legislative bill that gets brought up before Congress, and at least right now, in terms of trying to get Republicans, Democrats would need to justify offsetting those costs. How they do so, I wish I had more answers for you there. but they do want to at least look at doing that if they're looking to address reauthorizing another revitalization fund.
Good, thank you. If we have any particular interests or concerns, what's the best way for us to convey those to Senator Scott?
Yeah, please feel free to email me. And if I don't have those answers, I'll make sure to connect y'all to the folks on our team that do. You know, we're always happy to help y'all out as best as possible. And I know right now, you know, the economy is a bit of a mystery, but we know that at least things are looking. I'm optimistic, so I'm hoping things start to improve. But as you know, with inflation and whatnot, I know that there's still a lot of concerns out there. So we want to be as helpful as possible.
Good, Louise, thank you. So emailing you, what is your email address, please?
Yes, so it will be Luis, Luis _ my last name Reyes, Reyes at scott.senate.gov.
Fabulous. All right, y'all. Anything else? Great.
Should I say?
Well,
Like, yes.
Just was curious if you had anything you could share on what Senator Scott or other legislation that's being proposed on helping mitigate some of the supply chain disruptions that we're seeing, especially in terms of semiconductors. I know that's really heightened with Ukraine and all of the disruptions that have come from that.
That is an incredibly relevant question for right now. So I love that you posed that question. I would say in terms of Congress, or in terms of what Congress is working on, CHIPS funding, which is incredibly important, which would address the semiconductor issue, I think right now is being dealt with these with the current, what they're calling China bills. Which we're trying to develop that kind of production here at home, and expanding that kind of incentive to do so. So right now, I think that the Senate passed the U.S. Was it Innovation Act? It's something like I forget, the title escapes me. It was initially called the Endless Frontiers Act. Now it's changed names. The Senate passed that last year. And the House passed their America Competes Act, which included the CHIPS funding. So it looks like they'll be going to conference on those bills, and we should be seeing something coming out pretty soon about what that's going to look like, and what the language is going to say, how much money will be appropriated for this. Now, Senator Scott, like I prefaced before, will probably be concerned on the spending of the overall packages, because these are going to be big pieces of legislation. But we understand the importance of the CHIPS Act and the importance of the semiconductor issue, especially for South Carolina with BMW and a lot of different industries there. That's something that's very vital to making sure that our manufacturing is keeping pace with the demand. So,
Thank you.
Louise, thank you. Anybody else? Good. Well, Louise, thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day and your lunch hour.
Sounds good. Great to meet all of you. And like I said, feel free to email me with any questions, or like I said, if y'all need anything, you know, I'm happy to connect you with the right people here in the office.
All right. Thanks again. Have a great day.
Got it. Take care.
All right.